Well, thank you for joining us here today. We're here in the South, and of all the speakers, I'm the only one to come out here and talk to you on a bright southern spring day in a proper southern hat. And I got me a proper southern drink, too, and I'm going to leave it up to you to consider whether it's iced tea or whiskey. In the past decade, the organic food movement has really gathered steam. Books on eating like our ancestors and caveman diets made the bestseller lists. Clearly, people now believe we'd be healthier eating the foods humans evolved to eat over tens of thousands of years compared to the processed spawn of chemical plants and genetic engineers. Many of the strongest advocates of what we call ancestral diets are people who are vulnerable. Folks with asthma say they feel healthier when they remove processed foods from their diet. I know I do. Others talk about getting fitter or lowering blood pressure, eating what our ancestors ate. But I'm not here to talk about organic food. I'm here to talk about something else, something new whose time has come, organic education. Just as organic foods are grown naturally without pesticides, organic workers are those people who got their skills, their education naturally from experienced teachers. That's a subject of particular interest to me because I'm an autistic adult, and autism made modern school an insurmountable challenge for me. And it's an insurmountable challenge for thousands and thousands of other young people with developmental differences today. Autistic people have been around forever, and for most of that time, we've blended in with society. We may have been called eccentric, exceptional, or crazy, but we grew up and found a place in the communities where we lived. We apprenticed ourselves out and learned trades and went to work, just like everyone else. Some of us might today be described as disabled, and we tended animals without speaking. Others were very articulate and became preachers and leaders in the community. All of us seem to find our way, and that's been lost, partly thanks to education today. Autistic people were invisible until modern psychology dragged us into the limelight. Unfortunately, when they described us, they forgot to enumerate our gifts. They called us disabled because they saw what we couldn't do, and they overlooked what we do better than anyone else. As much as psychology has brought to help us, as much as psychologists have developed therapies and techniques that have changed the lives of people with autism for the good, there's also another side of it, and we're really only now learning to unravel the damage that seeing ourselves as broken and disabled has done to a generation of autistic people. We are only now recognizing that we are different, not less, and joining the community of neurodiverse humanity, people whose brains are wired differently, but we stand with all the rest of you, just like anyone else. With all the changes in education in the 20th century, the system has broken down for we neurodiverse, even as it's accommodated ever-increasing numbers of ordinary people. Traditional master-apprentice learning has been replaced by the book-based, refined education that's served up in today's public schools and colleges. Book learning is to education what synthetic fertilizer is to farming. It makes education available to anyone at low cost, but it's not quite as good as the original natural product. In the absence of hands-on training, books alone are often not enough. Books are like the concentrated chemicals in artificial fertilizers. The chemicals may make the plants grow, but they're missing other things, and it kills the land. With book learning only, we may get some of the facts, but we don't learn the skills. In the absence of hands-on training, it's just not enough, but that system has become our principal way of teaching, and it's what today's students know. We still have some hands-on learning today, like we see in the lab sessions that support classroom lectures and discussions. I believe we should be using the lab concept in almost every discipline we teach. We'd significantly improve education by restoring one of its organic roots. me just take a sniff here, a little drink. Yeah, you're still wondering what it is. Books alone won't take the place of hands-on learning, either in school or in outside internships, especially for people who have problems with reading and comprehension. By tying the acquisition of work skills to the ability to read and understand books, we've created disability in a large portion of the population. Just ask yourself, where were dyslexic people 200 years ago? We never heard of dyslexics 200 years ago, but they must have existed. They weren't disabled. Now, I'm not an opponent of books. I make a living writing them. But I realize they're not a universal learning style. That's why I record an audio version of every print book I write. If print books aren't actually needed to do most jobs, we should offer alternative ways of learning for those who do better differently. Learning a trade or job skill at the side of a master or tutor evolved over thousands of years, and that system of education works. Automating the process with a textbook may work for some people too, but for those of us who are different, just as kids with asthma are at risk eating some modern foods, neurodiverse kids are at risk consuming a modern education. They're at risk for failing to learn the skills required for work and adult life. And I know, because I'm one of them, and I failed in school. I contend that we are not just a small part of today's schools, kids that can be written off. We are the canaries in the mine shaft. Our failure is showing us problems that are holding back every student in school today, neurodiverse and typical alike. One of the most important subjects we've forgotten to teach is social skills and communication. People who lack those skills aren't accepted by society. Just like when I was a kid, we're rude, we're obnoxious, we're freaks, we're outcasts. Neurodiverse people are particularly challenged in this regard. People with autism, one of the hallmarks of autism is impaired communication ability. The result? We have a hard time getting jobs, difficulty making friends, and difficulty fitting into the social groups everyone else relies on for mutual support. In centuries past, manners were one of the first things taught to children. Manners and social deportment were emphasized everywhere, at home, in school, and in church, because they facilitate effective communication. People today dismiss the historic teaching of manners, but the truth is, manners were taught because we learned over thousands of years of human history that people needed those manners to communicate, and they had to communicate to succeed. It's one of the things we learned as we developed civilization, only to throw it away in the last century. Somehow, with the rise of technical education, that truth has been forgotten by mainstream America. Luckily, it's not forgotten in the special ed world. There we see children whose differences create greater communication challenges, and then we say we're teaching them communication, not manners, but the goal remains the same. Schools are beginning to develop good programs to teach communications, and I think those programs should be offered to every single student and improved for those who need them the most. Educators talk a lot about STEM and the importance of science and scientists. Geeks are famous for poor social skills, but consider who makes the big money in our society. It's the people who communicate smoothly and effectively, the smooth-talking, backslapping salespeople. And indeed, a preponderance of the most successful people in our society are in sales and marketing. At the very top of the pinnacle are those people, those few, who combine STEM skills and communication skills, and they bring us technical communication marvels like Facebook. Truly, in our society, those skills are king, and that's why we'd be wise to teach them to everyone. Then we come back to learning by doing. Every concept we teach in school can be taught by real-world example. You know, so often we talk today about learning by doing as a trade school thing, and it's a way of teaching lesser people who aren't good enough for regular school. But think about it. If you can't teach a subject in a learning by doing way, What is the application of it? Why do we teach it at all if you can't learn it by real example? Which would you rather do? Solve an abstract trigonometry problem out of a book, or figure out the area of an odd-shaped farmer's field? Those who argue for teaching abstract concepts are arguing against the way teaching has been done for the entire prior course of known history. And yet that's what we've chosen. Look back a few hundred years and you'll see that every great college was built on the concepts of tutoring, discussing, and learning by doing, augmented by books. That includes this school. You learn to be a minister at the side of a parish priest and by studying scripture. You learn to be a doctor by apprenticing yourself to a medical man and reading pharmacopoeia. Books were an adjunct to teaching, not a replacement for it. Indeed, my ancestors were stars at this school in the 1700s. And someone like me today could never gain admission. And I guess I have to ask, what's wrong with that picture? Some vocations are simple, while others are complex. Every person has the potential to find his level of capability and satisfaction in a trade. For one person, that trade may be caring for a large garden. For another, the trade may be being an engineer or a surgeon. But in each case, they began with a little bit of knowledge and honed their skills, using their hands and minds together with a good teacher as a mentor and guide. Everything we do is built on a foundation of ever more complex trade knowledge. Little kids build dams and canals in the sand at the beach, and then they fill them with buckets of water. Some of those kids get older, and they use that knowledge to make irrigation systems for farms. A few learn mathematical modeling and go on to turn those childhood play into public water systems, complex as the final designs may be. All of them started with simple hands-on experimentation. My belief in the power of vocational education is so strong that I have actually founded a trade school for young people who are different. Our TCS automotive program in Springfield, Massachusetts, combines teachers and working mechanics to teach the automobile trade in a real commercial auto service complex. That's backed up with the latest special education and social skills thinking to help young people learn real marketable skills. And that takes us to the next area, the teaching environment. Once again, we neurodiverse people, I believe, are showing the way for everyone. And it's a path humanity has trod for thousands of years until quite recently. People with autism often have sharper senses than the average person. Sensory overload is a common word if you know someone with autism. We may notice the flicker of fluorescent lights. We may be hypersensitive to smells. We may be overly sensitive to the textures of the chairs and the furniture. Fluorescent lights are everywhere. They're in our workplaces and our schools, shining with their green-white light. No one believes fluorescent lights are better. They're there because they're cheap. And that is an example of how something today in modern society is making neurodiverse kids fail. Studies have shown that neurodiverse people are stressed by flickering lights, harsh noises, and other environmental insults. When that happens, we lose the ability to concentrate. We become short-tempered. We freak out. Some of us may have to leave the room. None of those things are conducive to classroom success. Progressive schools accommodate us with more natural environments, similar to what our ancestors knew, similar to what we had at William&Mary before the advent of electric light. So what would you choose today? Who in his right mind would choose to be educated in a harshly lit, noisy, or foul-smelling place when there was an open, natural alternative? Once again, special ed is showing the way to make things better for everyone. We neurodiverse people may be more sensitive, but it's hard for me to believe that the things that trouble us don't affect everyone at some level. The final thing I'd like to challenge is the all-or-nothing bet that many people make when they enter our education system. The risk is strikingly clear when we consider people with developmental challenges. Anyone who looks at the graduation and employment statistics for people with autism is bound to be disappointed. Barely half of us graduate high school. Even fewer stay the course to attain a college degree. When we go to work, we get stuck on the bottom rung if we get on the ladder at all. Here's an example of how it happens. A parent or counselor talks to an autistic child who's interested in cars. She's told by the adults that the best goal for her is becoming a mechanical engineer at a car company. So she struggles in high school, knowing she has to get into a 4-year college. And once she gets into college, she's got to get that bachelor's degree because she's got to go on to grad school because the good design jobs all require a graduate degree. Well, here's the problem. Depending on which statistics you believe, the odds of her getting that master's degree are between 1 in 5 and 1 in 20. Meanwhile, high school isn't teaching her any practical skills as a backstop. Her high school, like most today, is focused on test scores. She's spending her high school years learning how to pass college entrance exams. The whole high school is a bet on college entrance. And once she's in college, it doesn't change. The whole undergraduate program is focused on learning the things she will need to know to get good grades in college, meet the minimum requirements, and get into grad school. She still isn't learning how to design cars. Only in grad school does she begin to do independent work that finally relates to cars. And hopefully, her thesis will catch the idea of a recruiter and her dream will be fulfilled. But what if it's not? And it doesn't happen 80% of the time. If I were a betting man, I would not lay a couple $100,000 on that outcome. And that's what the education's going to cost. It's an all or nothing bet. If she drops out anywhere in the program, her job prospects are hardly any better than if she quit school in the 11th grade. And it doesn't have to be that way. Instead of betting everything on the master's degree, we can hedge our bets every single year. When you look at that, it makes more sense. I believe that we should add hands-on learning opportunities at the high school and college level that teach practical skills that will lead to a job at every single step. I believe that we should teach people the things they need to make a living wage in high school. Boy, I'm running out of time here. So, what can you do? You can teach people real usable work skills at every stage of the education process. You can teach people in a comfortable environment. You can make sure every high school graduate has a basic competency in social skills, and you can help students get organized and find their gifts. Thank you all.